ready to finally understand your ADHD brain and feel like yourself again, listen to Christine MacCarroll's ADHD Naturally podcast for holistic women and discover how to thrive naturally.
Liz Wolfe, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, friend. You're my friend now since you came and stayed at my house.
Yay. Yeah, I mean, I kind of think that's just like a requirement. And I met your children, which to me, if someone has met my children, definitely that is the case.
That solidifies it. It was all part of my plan.
I love it. So Liz, I'm excited to dive into the topic of metabolism with you today. I love that you have this just different perspective around metabolism, kind of debunking some myths, talking to women. I'm just going to loosely say our age, even though you're younger than me. I'm just going to say like after, it's a bracket, the same bracket here. And I think there's a lot of misconception out there. So, I think one of the biggest issues that women think that they're going to have is that we are just like doomed to have this, I'm going to air quotes, slow metabolism as we get older. And I think one of the challenges is we don't even know what that means. We're just like, oh, it's bad. It's slow. It's slowing down. All the things are happening. It's falling apart. So just kind of starting at the beginning, you probably have something to say about this and the idea that metabolism slows down and we're just doomed to have like bad things happen when we are hitting midlife. And is that true? Is that not true? And like, what are we even saying when we're talking about metabolism slowing down?
Oh, I have so many things to say about that. And I need to work on my elevator pitch. But the gist of it is, first of all, there was a paper that was released semi-recently that basically looked at the metabolic rate. So when we're talking about the metabolic rate, we're basically, for the most part, you'll think how many calories I burn, right? Mm-hmm. I like to flip that a little bit and refer to it as the amount of energy we're able to generate. Because we love energy, we want energy. We look at calories as kind of a bad thing sometimes. Energy is always a good thing and something that we want more of. Mm-hmm. So I like to reframe it that way. But the paper that came out talked about how across the lifespan, all the way into your 60s, your metabolic rate actually stays pretty stable. And at first I felt kind of gaslit. I was like, hold on. Wait a second. So are you saying I'm not experiencing what I feel like I'm experiencing? But what I realized is there are some complexities to it. It's not that we just like aren't burning off any of our food anymore. What's actually happening metabolically is that we have this whole other set of things going on as we get older, as we move through life. And most significantly, we are losing muscle. We're becoming less active. We're becoming more stressed. I like to say women in our bracket, are carrying more than any human being should ever be expected to carry. I mean, even in our most like privileged lives, mm-hmm. I have it really good, but I still find myself stressing over so many different things. My kids, my parents now.
Yeah.
Financials as we get older. Are we going to have enough for retirement? Are we going to have enough to help send our kids to school? All of those things. And that also factors in to the entire like hormonal and metabolic balance in our bodies. So while we are maybe still capable of burning the same number of calories, we have a whole bunch of other stuff that's going on. And the simplest way for me to describe it is that the energy that we're producing is going towards, in some ways, dysfunction rather than function.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the crux of it. And there are a lot of things that we can do, but we have to look at metabolism in a different way. We have to look at it not so much as like how many calories we burn, but how our body is generating the energy to run all of these systems that make us functional and make us feel good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh man, you were discussing that whole list. And I'm like, yes, 100%. I feel all of that. I've had some challenges with aging parents recently. I'm about to send my oldest off to college next year. Looking at the first time you sit down the financial aid conversation, you're like, oh my God.
Oh Lord.
So there's just so much. But when you were talking, I was imagining just carrying this backpack and like you just keep walking and someone just like keeps putting a rock in like your backpack and you think you're just going along and they're just like, here's another rock in your backpack. And it just gets heavy and it's harder as you go to carry all of those rocks in your backpack, even if you theoretically have the same resources.
Yes, absolutely. Although, we do like weighted vests. So
okay. I am a fan of the weighted vest, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Leverage the weighted vest. But yes, absolutely. That's exactly what it is. And we become more to lean on the we become less active part a little bit. I had this moment last year, I think it was, where I was like, okay, I just sat in the car to drive to and from school pickup. Then I sat at home, and then I got up, and then I sat in the car to get to soccer practice. And then I brought a chair and sat at soccer practice. And then I went home and I sat at dinner, and we don't even realize, but it's the time we're spending in the car. It's the time we're spending seated. It's all of that. And it starts to compound. And I think in our 40s and after is kind of when the piper comes to get paid. We had the reserves in our 20s and 30s, but then in our 40s, we've kind of like worked through our, our reserves,
the
and
stores.
we're just like, we're like, we either need to refill the tank or we need to find a different source of fuel.
Yeah, 100%. And I also think about, you were talking about like the energy usage, and it's just like, there's also like just a difference in how we're using the energy. So it's the energy, like you were talking, the dysfunctional energy where we're using it more for stress function than like just your own like functional body. So a challenge that I hear from a lot of women, you just described, okay, you were sitting driving your kids, you were sitting at the, soccer fields, you're just like, okay, I'm more sedentary, but women are going to say, but I'm so freaking tired. Like with all of the things we've just talked about, the load that we're bearing, and, just at the end of the day, if I'm sitting at the soccer field, like, so sue me, right? Like I'm so tired. So when we're thinking about like supporting energy and energy usage and metabolism, is like, okay, like, how are we getting access to our energy? Like, what can we do about that then if we're in our midlife and we feel like we have the 10,000 pounds of rocks in our backpack? We're just tired.
So tired. There's like multiple types of tired, I'm discovering. I always thought there was one kind of tired. There's like sleep deprived tired. There's emotionally tired. There's just like Google Calendar tired. Like I can't fit more stuff in. There's like future tired. It's like anticipatory tiredness. It's like, oh my God, I don't get a break until like 3 weeks from now. I have a day to myself. There's so many different kinds of tired. So this is where I think a lot of people disagree with me. But I think I'm just ahead of the curve. That's what I'm telling myself.
Yeah.
100%. Like 10 years from now, everybody's going to agree with me. But I think what it comes down to, and I have to say, I hate the stress narrative. I talk about this a lot, where like you need to you need to manage your stress. You're tired. You need to take a bath. You need to do some yoga, some gentle yoga, and maybe like have some tea. And I'm just like, yeah, it's the same thing. It's like, I want to sit down at soccer practice. I don't want to take a bath to get all hot and sweaty. Like, stop giving me all these limp solutions to what I'm dealing with, and stop making me feel like I should be doing something different or better or whatever it is. So I totally get that. So the way I look at this is really through the lens of stress. Being tired is a stressor. Being stressed is a stressor. Being dragged out is a stressor. The Google Calendar is a stressor. All of these things come down to stressors. And I think that what has the absolute most power to affect a reduced stress state, a reduction in stress, is carbohydrates.
Oh yeah, you are out on a limb, sister.
I am people, I'm sorry no one's listening anymore. The 3 people who stuck around. But this goes back to a very primal, programmed a set of programs or programming in our bodies that we don't have conscious control over, that communicate to our bodies whether we're safe or not. And if we are safe, stress goes down. If we are not safe, stress goes up. There's another paper that I love to cite, and I hope I can quote this right because I don't have it right in front of me, but it's stress is the like physiological response of an organism to a stressor that is real or imagined. So it doesn't matter what kind of stressor it is. It doesn't matter if it's aging parents, if it's kids, if it's a death in the family,
Google Calendar.
Google Calendar. It just doesn't matter. Stress is stress. And yeah, we can meditate. Yeah, we can like do all that stuff that's supposed to reset our nervous systems. I love that. Like I'm a fan of that. I never do it, but I'm a big fan. I love all of that. But if you could just get up in the morning and have a nice hit of carbs and not feel guilty about it, that, in my experience, not just my experience, but in my research, will go a lot farther than stressing yourself out over whether or not you're meditating, or stressing yourself out over whether or not you're going to get a chance to take a bath with an Epsom salts bath or whatever it is that people are supposed to do to solve their stress. Which, by the way, when I do that, my kids are outside the bathroom door.
Oh, yeah.
Dogs barking at me. I'm like, your dad is like 2 feet away.
Oh, yeah. But that doesn't... somebody needs to do a research study around the percentage of times children say mom first before they say dad, even with a wonderful dad and wonderful co-parent. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, they just say mom first. I don't even have a door in my bathroom, by the way. It is like a pet peeve of my house. Like, somebody thought that like an open concept bedroom was the same as an open concept kitchen. I don't know what came up. That's nonsense. But we've never put a door on. And so they'll be like just outside the open doorway, like, Mom. I'm like, go away.
Like, no, you need like one of those, like they put at the movie theater, just like a little pole with a sign.
Oh, yes.
On it. It's
like, do not disturb. There's nobody here. So I think, I'm going to say, I think we've gotten away too far in all directions when we're talking about macros, and that we have to swing back to a balance point. Yeah. We've gotten to the point of, all fat versus no fat. We've gone to like only eat carbs. That was the advice of the 80s and 90s. Like, just eat all the pasta. Yeah. And like, don't worry about protein. Definitely, I am so pro the more protein conversation right now. But still, we can swing into like, okay, like just no carbs in that conversation. And a lot of women who are interested in, like, if they're thinking, well, I'm going to like boost my metabolism, I'll air quotes that one too, right? But they're like, okay, well, I'm just going to like go hit the gym more, and I know I need protein for that. And then we're ignoring the carb part of the conversation. What are we doing to our stress system when we do that, or when we have not had any carbs like first thing in the morning, like you're advocating for?
Well, carbs is how we signal supply to our bodies, and foundationally, we are organisms that want to survive. And in order to survive, we have to have a supply of nourishment. And carbohydrate just inherently is part and parcel to a season of supply. And it's not just that. It's not, I don't think the historical, ancestral, paleo point of view is always useful. I think that we live in modern times and we need modern solutions for modern times. So we have to apply this conscientiously. But I do think, as people who are experiencing the types of stressors that were not present in the lives of our ancestors. Our ancestors, these are broad strokes, but the stressors were, an example, getting chased by a tiger or whatever they got chased by. I'm thinking of the Croods. We have that on repeat here right now.
Yeah.
We're watching that all day long. But you either get away or you get eaten. So one way or the other, the stress stops. There's like a hard stop, right? Yeah. And then you're doing whatever else it is. In modern times, right now, it never stops. It just never stops. And you can have happiness and joy in your life. You can focus on that, yes. But we are taxed. We're just taxed. And I don't mean that in like a doomsday way. I just mean it in a realistic way. I think probably step one for some people is just realizing how much they're taking on and giving themselves credit for it, which is huge. But when we are experiencing more stress, I believe very strongly, and I've seen this played out in women, when we're more stressed, we need more carbohydrate supply. And by the way, the whole protein conversation is awesome. Women need more protein. I've been banging that drum for a long time.
Yeah.
But do folks know that carbohydrates, which stimulate insulin, actually make your cells more able to bring in the amino acids from protein? So I'm also a big like protein plus carbs person, not just protein by itself, but protein plus carbs. So when we can do that, especially when we first wake up, which is a kind of heightened cortisol state naturally, cortisol being what people know as the stress hormone, we can deperpetuate that. We can kind of tamp that down, buffer it with a hit of carbs and some protein. So we're limiting the breakdown state from the overnight fast. We're limiting that stress response that can be perpetuated into the rest of our days very easily if we're not careful. And we're signaling safety to our bodies in a way that doesn't require us to consciously communicate it or consciously convince ourselves that we're okay. It's just like, we're okay, And I think also to add to that, we hear a lot about like the adrenal cocktail that people have been drinking. I don't know if that's still a thing, but one of the strongest parts of that I felt was the vitamin C.
Vitamin C. Yeah.
Yes. So it's like you get some glucose, which is straight up energy substrate. And I know we're going to talk about like the brain and all of that.
Yeah.
Straight up glucose from somewhere, an orange, whatever, some vitamin C and some protein first thing in the morning absolutely changes the game, especially if you're a compulsive faster, which is another thing that communicates that you're not safe, is fasting. So yes, I forgot the original question, but that's my soapbox.
Yeah, no, we were the original question is about like, carbohydrates, and people don't think that they are okay or safe anymore because we're really hyper focused on like, okay, right now, get enough protein, which again, I think we agree on. We do need to be getting more, but sometimes these conversations go when we are only like, it's a one note conversation. We disregard the nuance of like, hey, like that was a great point you just said. We actually need the carbohydrate to be able to use the protein. Specifically, so for my audience of women with ADHD, the heaviest user of glucose in the body is the brain. So when we are doing a lot of fasting, or if we're doing, these, even if they are, serving other purposes, but if you're like trying to kind of intentionally starving yourself in a way, especially like first thing in the morning, absolutely, first of all, we're not sending safety signals and increasing cortisol, to your point, but also we're not even giving our brains the fuel that they need. So of course we're going to feel like crap later on. And then I think certainly happens with ADHD women. I've worked with women for decades, so I think it's all women. Then we also go into maybe a binge state of whatever other source later in the day, because if we didn't have it early, then we're really in fight or flight, right? But by the time the afternoon comes along and you're like, oh my, your body's just like, it takes over, like your brain takes over.
Yes.
So you're just like, okay, just give me whatever I need it right now. Whereas if you just like took care of it a little bit earlier, maybe you wouldn't be in the like panic state.
Yeah. And that's kind
on.
of your body doing you a favor too. Like at a certain point, we store, all right, man, this is like, we could even back up farther. Our bodies can store a certain amount of sugar. They can, we'll just call it sugar, carbohydrate. The energy source that our bodies use is glucose. We can talk about ketones. That's like a little Atkins diety for me. That's like a little 2002. I'm still surprised that we're still talking about
Still
ketones.
about it. Yeah.
Unless it's like in a therapeutic setting, that's kind of a different thing. But it all breaks down to glucose. And our body is constantly seeking to either use glucose that we give it or generate glucose in order to fuel our energy systems. And when you don't give that to yourself, to your point, by the end of the day, it may very well be that your body has exhausted its storage of glucose and is like, oh my God, please go find some sugar, please. And that's why we go crazy. And I had written down a topic for a post, and I was going to share this with you before we got on the air, but it was something to do with like, what if we crave sugar because we need it? What if we crave, whoa, like maybe our bodies actually have some wisdom there. And yeah, what's available is generally crap. But what if we are in like a, countrywide glucose deficiency and an inability to process it properly because of what we have utilized in its place? And like, we just need to correct this by upping the carbs a little bit,
So it's funny. I think of a lot of these conversations as old conversations too. like we've, that was old times. So, but I have a 17-year-old daughter, and she has friends who are athletes. She's not herself an athlete, but she's interested. She's a gym rat, right? So she likes to go to the gym with us, which is fantastic.
Love it.
Love that. Yeah. But so she's been asking me a lot of questions. I also love that she not only ignored me, but was like talk to the hand for her entire life. And all of a sudden now she's like, hey mom, tell me about whatever.
You might actually know something weird.
Yeah, I know. And now that I'm at the gym, I feel like I need some support. So in the last week, she's been asking me all these questions about like her workout and like carbs and like, well, are carbs bad? And then what about carb loading? And like, she has athlete friends who kind of were actually still having some 2002 level conversations. And it is interesting. And it has proven to me that the conversation hasn't changed as much as we think it has. And there is actually still quite a lot of this, even in the younger generations, and a lot of kind of misinformation. So I think it would be really helpful. I'm going to go back to like you were talking about at the beginning, or a couple topics back. that we're in a breakdown state when we wake up. And I want to go a little bit more into that because there's a lot of conversation around timing and food timing. And I actually think there's something to that. Like you want to get your protein in after your workout and things like that. But there's a lot of conversation about being in a fasted state with a workout. And I'm hearing this still in our teenagers, like it's good or better to go into a workout fasted and that you'll get like whatever better results they think are from that. So talk about what happens when you wake up and what kind of a state we're in and like, you know, why do we want to not, I mean, obviously, why do we not want to be in a breakdown state? But like, what's that doing to us?
Well, listen, I think we should make the point first that a lot of people, maybe our age, maybe not the teens right now, but a lot of folks our age fast because of like autophagy, you know, like
longevity. We think it's going to be the magic pill. Yeah.
But we fast when we're sleeping, we're fasting. Like, good job. You already did it. You already fasted. You don't need to do it anymore. Like, get up and give your body some fuel. When you wake up, your body is seeking fuel. By the time that you've gotten through the overnight fast, by the time you've woken up from sleeping, your body has transitioned into a breakdown state. Yes, you've had some metabolic flexibility during the night, which is wonderful. We burn fat for fuel during the night, generally speaking. But by the time you wake up, you're starting to break down your protein structures. You're starting to really get low on glucose reserves. And so when you wake up, if you wake up and you work out fasted, and I'll make the point also that a lot of these studies, a lot of the information that is being referenced when we talk about fasted training is done on men.
Like almost all of it.
If not all of it. Now, thanks to Dr. Stacy Sims, I think we're going to have a lot more information on this, but also we already know the physiology of it. We already know what cortisol does and what this hormonal cascade does to the female body, to female physiology, and it's very, very different. So if we wake up and we train fasted, yes, you're going to burn more calories, and maybe you feel like that's a good thing. It kind of comes down to what your goals are. Do you want to burn more calories and stay in a stress state? So down the line, your body ends up doing the talk to the hand thing where it's like, no, you know what? Actually, I'm going to downregulate all your energy systems. I'm going to make you feel like you cannot even drag yourself to the gym. I'm going to make you feel like you need to have your nose in the refrigerator from 8 p.m. until 11 p.m. And then you're going to feel like crap. And that's where we're at. But if your purpose for working out is to better your metabolic system so they can run more efficiently, then we're going someplace like that. Now we're talking turkey. So if you work out with fuel, so whether that's a hit of carbohydrate and protein, whether that's amino acids, whether that's whatever little biohack you want to do, because I understand first thing in the morning, people aren't necessarily wanting a big meal before they work out. There's little things that you can do. But you're going into that workout saying, I'm going to fuel the crap out of this. I'm going to promote strength. I'm going to promote additional muscle mass, muscle protein synthesis. I'm going to gain fitness in order to promote circulation, promote detoxification, promote the uptake of glucose. When we work out, we are actually able to take glucose into our muscles, which is our biggest storage system for glucose in our bodies, more so than the liver, without using insulin, by the way. You don't have to have an insulin spike or whatever people are so afraid of these days in order to use that glucose that we give ourselves to fuel our workouts. And it's another way to signal safety. So are you working out to like burn as many calories as possible and get skinny like we always used to think about in the 90s? Or are we working out to make ourselves better? If the latter, then we want to fuel that. And that's a longevity proposition.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, like to me, like I'm thinking about fuel at literally the very baseline level of like the cells, right? So like your muscles need energy, your brain needs energy, but like if we haven't provided our cells with the energy to run, like it doesn't matter what other biohack you do, you're gonna start with a breakdown process because you're going, I don't have the materials I need to run this ship. So
exactly,
gonna have to come from somewhere, even if it's my own self.
From our structures, you know, it comes from our structures, and that is the last thing we want, especially as we age. We are already dealing with age-related decline in muscle mass. We're already losing muscle tissue just by virtue of getting older for multiple reasons, but it is a thing. We don't need to break that down even more.
Well, and you know, there is that tendency. So just broadly say midlife in our bracket to become insulin resistant as we get older. our brains actually can become insulin resistant. So that same like glucose we need for our brains to run, not happening. So I love what you're talking about, because we're bypassing that need for insulin when we're doing some working out. We're not saying we need to have the big insulin spike and like potentially aggravating a system that's already tending towards insulin resistance. So we don't need to be as worried about that. And then also specifically in that realm of carbohydrates, like, okay, like we can use the carbohydrates that we are taking in, not worried about, okay, this isn't, it's going to go into storage somewhere and not be used. So you got your personal training certification somewhat recently, right? Was it the interest was it your interest in like muscle and metabolism and all of that fueled that?
Yes. I mean, I was never like a worker outer. I was an athlete, as a young person, and then I drank beer in college. And then after that, I was like, what am I supposed to be doing? So I love that your daughter is into the gym thing, because that's kind of a skill, being able to be in the gym and know what to do and not just like run on the treadmill is the skill that you want to hone. So after my first daughter was born, I struggled a lot. I struggled with postpartum anxiety, panic attacks. I didn't even realize were panic attacks. And at a certain point, I was like, I do have to start taking care of myself, but I'm not going to do it myself. I need somebody to be waiting for me. Like, where is she at? So I hired a trainer, and it just so I walked in and I was like, okay, I'm willing to meet with somebody, but I don't want somebody to do like Biggest Loser, Jillian Michaels, whatever. And this guy laughed at me and he was like, come into my office, let's talk. And he started out by talking to me about stress. And I was like, oh, this guy knows something. He knows something. And it was Nick Briney from Evexia, Kansas City. I still train with him 7 years later. Wow. His wife is a good friend of mine. Like, we've become, colleagues and friends. And I feel so lucky that such a world-class trainer came into my life in that moment. And his ability to coach and his ability to see the whole picture really inspired me to not only get my CPT for myself, but also so that I could start coaching women in my age bracket. And I do that through an app and through some of my programs and whatnot. But I just felt very strongly like that I wanted to have those qualifications so that I could kind of put some backing to what I was so passionate about.
Yeah, amazing. And then you have that unique ability to kind of overlap, like, okay, I have this really strong nutrition background that I can bring to the conversation. And obviously, like, a lot of what we do at the gym is reliant, and we were just talking about, on what we're fueling with. But then you can bring into the conversation as well, okay, well, then here's what your muscles need. Here's what your physiology needs as you are hopefully nourishing yourself better as well.
And can we lift,
Yeah.
Like, can we, there's a type of training. And also, I should throw this out there. I'm like a very regular person. Some of the like middle-aged, midlife fitness people I follow are like, they are such badasses. I mean, they are. But I also feel like they kind of live at the gym, and it is their life's work. Fitness is not my life's work. General well-being for myself and my family is my life's work. And so I want to be able to help women train properly, because there is a way to train for longevity and train for health and train for not adding more stress. But you got to do it in a certain way. So I'm hoping that I can kind of be that accessible fitness in midlife person.
Yeah.
So that's important for me to know.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm like some body types also. And I'm like, okay, so I know that you've been working out since you were 15.
Yes.
Probably also had like a natural genetic predisposition to have a certain body type, and it makes it easier. And then sometimes people feel like, well, I could never attain that, and then I'm just going to quit before I start, versus like saying, okay, well, I want to be able to lift my groceries, and I want to be able to like, bike ride. I have a client in her 70s who does like, 10, 20 mile bike rides in the mountains regularly, because she's been taking care of her body since she was in her 30s. I'm like, that should be the goal for all of us, is like, we want to be just like still out there active doing our lives, and like not like feeling like
pickleball.
I'm not old and sitting in my chair. Oh man. I can't do pickleball. I support all of the pickleballers of the world.
I support you. I'm not one of them.
I will sit out. Our neighborhood has a big, like, everyone in the neighborhood plays pickleball. They literally did a taped out, like in our cul-de-sac, like it is a permanently taped pickleball. And I will just sit and cheer, and my kids and my husband, and I'm like, no, don't send any balls flying towards my face. I don't play those games. But
yeah, I get it.
But I'm in support of that for sure. So what do you do for your personal, like, hey, I wake up and I got 2 kids to get to school, and I want to make sure that I'm sending my body the safety signal. What is your morning fuel up look like?
Well, as much as I dislike this concept of biohacking, I'm trying to think of a better word for what I do. I would just say it's strategy. Strategy and shortcuts, because I feel like that's what I need right now. Yeah. We're so anti easy button. I'm so pro easy button. If we can make something easier, let's do that. So really being so passionate about that first thing in the morning hit of carbohydrates and protein. That's something that's kind of, I wouldn't say non-negotiable for me, because everything's negotiable, but I will do, not being a type A person, but in general, I will do some kind of really simple protein shake, or I kind of have that hack that I can share if you want me to. It's a little out there, but I can share it.
Okay, just yes.
Just share it. Okay. And we're gonna have to, after
Obviously.
this, we're gonna have to talk about glucose in the brain, because this has been my quest the last couple of years. I started learning about the utility of glucose in so many different avenues. I knew that glucose was really important for traumatic brain injury. So, and you were talking about how like our largest, utilizer of glucose is the brain.
Yeah.
And so this, is amazing, just mind-blowing information, I think, for a lot of people. But I've been doing all of this research on glucose because I found that, okay, I'm going to back up. I've been doing all this research on glucose. A friend of mine the other day came up to me and was like, I have this syndrome, this itching syndrome. It's like deep nerve itching. And I can't explain exactly what it is, but she said, and she doesn't know what I do. Like she doesn't know I've been, ravenously researching glucose for the last 2 years. She goes, so I've been doing these injections of glucose, or of dextrose, which is pure glucose, into the, like, those areas of the nerves as a treatment for this like incurable syndrome.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh my God. And she was talking about how we're using it for like PTSD, all of these different, I just think our brains are chronically underfueled. And I think not just our brains, but so many other parts of our bodies are chronically under energized. And so we just are not functioning properly. So with that in mind, as someone who likes to self-experiment and also strategize and take shortcuts, I have started waking up first thing in the morning. It used to be a protein shake with orange juice, my Orange Julius protein shake. So it would be orange juice for the glucose and vitamin C, whey protein for the protein, obviously, and sometimes a little bit of coconut milk or vanilla just for flavor. Takes 2 seconds, shake it up, drink that down, and then have like a real breakfast, like an hour or so later, maybe after I drop the kids off at school. Now, lately, what I've been doing is taking my amino acid supplement. I Ideal Age Daily Aminos Plus, which is basically the building blocks of protein. Adding a tablespoon of dextrose. I know.
Where do you get dextrose? I have to interject right
now
there.
Foods. Now Foods, organic, non-GMO dextrose.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
It's derived
Easy.
from corn, so a lot of people may have a problem with that, but it's just pure glucose, just a little scoop of that in there, and a pinch of powdered vitamin C. And I shake it up and I take it down, and I will tell you, like, there's no crash. There's no crash from that, because that glucose is going directly into energy production. But what I have found is my focus. Only other thing that's been better for my focus is your supplement.
Oh, love it.
Those 2 things have been the most profound strategies that I have found for a focused, productive day and morning, is that glucose, that direct energy, first thing in the morning. And I know people maybe aren't ready for that, but it's been incredible.
Have you ever tracked your own glucose, like using a CGM or like finger stick or anything like that?
I'm being stubborn about that. My husband has.
Yeah.
I've done, but I worry that and you'll tell me your opinions on this. I worry about testing glucose with like interstitial fluid. Like whether that's super accurate or not. I think that's kind of considered one of the downsides of But I also don't deal with like spikes and crashes. That has never been like my issue.
Mm-hmm.
My husband has tracked it and he's like, oh, rice really does it to me. And I'm like, okay, well, stop eating rice. Be unhappy, But I think that's interesting. I think it's an interesting way to track. The tracking I have done is I've done DEXA to track muscle mass.
Mm-hmm.
I've done RMR breath tests, which I love, which is a wonderful way to see what your metabolic rate actually is.
Yeah.
And then VO2 max.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to come back to those. I'm sticking a pin in that. So reason I asked about the glucose monitor, and it has been a minute. I'm gonna have to go back. You've opened that research question in my brain, so I'm gonna have to answer for my. I have that insatiable itching that happens in my brain when I have a question I have to answer. I don't know what we're gonna call this question or that syndrome. Yeah. But I like when I was starting to research glucose monitors. I mean, honestly, I started with like the tracking with the finger stick 8-9 years ago. Like it's been a long time. Yeah. And I've worn continuous glucose monitors off and on for many years. I think it's maybe the last time was like 3 years ago that I did one. I do remember like when I was researching, and this research could be old, but they really do track like the interstitial fluid, to your point, versus like a finger stick. Like it really, and I noticed that myself. And they even have you like, what do they call it? Priming. Like, I don't know. I think it's called priming, like prime your monitor by like actually taking a finger stick and validating. And you can like track it and say like, here's what my finger stick said and here's what my monitor said. And then you can, it'll like fine tune the CGM to make sure that it's useful there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mostly like, so as somebody, and I'm with you, I love self-experimentation. That's like I'm like such a, and my poor family, they are also my guinea pigs. I always tell them what I'm doing now. I'm like, okay, let's try this. Or do you want to? Like they're I got the signed off consent form. Yeah. So my wonder, I'm like with that dextrose, like I'm just super curious because you said you didn't have the crash.
No,
which is
and
fantastic.
A tablespoon of dextrose is like 7 grams of carbs. Like, are we really going to
crazy?
Like quibble over that? You know what I mean?
I'm not. Yeah. But I'm just like, I'm like dead curious. Like now I'm like probably going to go get a CGM and like, I just want to know, I want to try the dextrose and I want to try the CGM and I just want to see like what happens when I do that. But
yeah, see what happens. The TBI people, there's the traumatic brain injury, like concussion people, they are doing glucose or like tablespoons of glucose multiple times throughout the day. And just to fuel their brain's recovery from the TBI. Mm-hmm. So it's just so telling of how important glucose is to the brain, which is exactly what you just said. And by the way, it's too sweet. My little concoction is too sweet because we sweetened the aminos because aminos are bitter, inherently bitter. So we had to sweeten them. But people are so beside themselves about carbs that, of course, we sweetened with monk fruit. Mm-hmm. And so I would love to do an amino acid formula with dextrose in it. Mm-hmm. And if one day we move forward as a society and I can actually sell that.
And people are going to be like, oh my God, there's dextrose. Yes. What are you doing? You're crazy. Yeah. So I will say too, so I give that to my kids and it's been helpful because, I am they fight me, but they also know they're not going to win. So it is what it is. They are not allowed to leave the house without breakfast. And like one of them is fine with it. The other one, she's always running behind and she always just like, I hate breakfast. I don't want it. I'm not hungry, whatever. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. You have to. Yeah. And like, it's been hard for them to get like, it's hard for me to get things in them before they leave the house. And they both love your aminos and they are both willing to do it before they leave. So to me, I'm like, okay, even if I can't get everything in you that I want to, because you are now teenagers and you refuse me, like if you just drink that and go off into your life, like I'm going to feel better. I've had a little bit of something like actual food, but I know you actually got some amino acids and like, you're not going to just like crash and burn in the middle of the day. So I think that's super important. And I will say another side note, I know you left out histidine from your formula.
Yes.
I have some ADHD, like histamine, like stuff I want to follow up on, but I want you to kind of just talk about histidine as an amino acid. Maybe actually let's just back way up and say amino acids, protein relationship. What are they? Why are we doing amino acids? And like, we share the love affair with amino acids. So, kind of what got you into that piece?
Well, amino acids are the building blocks of protein. And we don't call it protein. I don't try and create an equivalency between the amino acids and protein because they are essential amino acids. They are not all of the amino acids. There's more than 9. I included 8 in my essential amino acid formula. The reason that we did not do histidine, and if you look at most other essential amino acid formulas on the market, their histidine is like, there's like hardly any in there, but they just kind of throw some in so they can say they've got all 9. I felt like we actually don't need histidine because we get enough from background intake. Almost anybody, in general, you get enough for your requirements just from the food that you're eating during the course of the day. Leucine is by far the most important essential amino acid, especially in our age bracket, because it promotes muscle protein synthesis, and that's what we want. So that was really like the calculus. It just felt superfluous. And it kind of carried the added benefit. This wasn't my intention, but I do have a lot of my histamine buddies, my like histamine avoidant friends and family who were like, thank you for not putting this in the formulation. So nothing inherently wrong with histidine other than the fact that it just didn't feel like we needed to put like that tiny little amount in there just to be able to say we had all 9. Really, it was leucine, the BCAAs, and a couple of others that I was most important. And then on top of that, we added an amino acid, taurine, which is also, I think, probably part of the magic of the product. I think the essential aminos are huge, but I think taurine is like the secret ingredient. And then on top of that, we added electrolytes just for absorption and hydration, which I know people love their electrolytes right now. So other than that, there was not this great, huge, compelling reason. There's no gotcha where it's like, they include histidine and you're going to die if you take theirs. Yeah. It was just kind of a functional decision to make for other stuff that was important.
Yeah. So the histidine-histamine connection, can you just say a little bit about that?
No, you have to say something about that. I literally, like, it's kind of like in the bucket with SIBO for me. It's something I know about, but not inside and out. And you and I were talking a little bit about histamine at my house because I have like a weird response to coffee and chocolate and tea. And I even get a little bit of it when I talk about it, which is why I think it's psychosomatic.
Oh, oh, that's fascinating. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, very much so. But you talk about histidine and histamine and educate me. That would be wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so histidine, like, I'm sure you know, it's like it's like a precursor. The amino acid is the precursor to histamine. Yes. And this is not an answered question. I have my own hypotheses, but like there's a couple of interesting relationships with people who have ADHD. Relationship one is in the literature, people who have ADHD have significantly lower histidine, like 20% less in our blood, which is just interesting to me.
Oh, yeah.
However, a lot of people also have genetically a histamine, like more sensitivity to histamine, and like just the smallest amounts of histamine can induce brain fog. So, I mean, I personally think this is just like our smart bodies, and smart bodies are adaptive. And, you know, like we, when there's maybe like a weak link in the chain, our bodies are trying to, you know, kind of shore up the resources around that weak link. And so maybe the histidine being lower is on purpose because the histamine is aggravating to an ADHD brain. But knowing that, you know, like, so I had a conversation, an interview with Dr. Tyler Pansner recently, who's a genetics expert, and he is extremely sensitive to histamine. So like a small amount of bone broth, he's like, I feel like, bone broth. He feels brain fog like instantly. Like it just like really triggers his brain to not feel good, like those small amounts of histamine. But, you know, I feel like I'm a little bit like, don't have as much of a relationship that way. Like higher histamine foods don't necessarily do anything to me brain-wise that I have noticed personally. But my younger daughter, she has a ton of allergies. So my kiddo with ADHD, and like I absolutely notice a difference with higher histamine foods. She gets hives really easily. She has all kinds of skin issues really easily, especially if she has high histamine foods. So I'm not like crazy monitoring her diet. I don't like count the amount of histamine or like, you know, you had this much and now you can't have this other thing for dinner. And, you know, it's hard enough with some of the things that she has to do from my perspective. So, yeah, but I do notice it. And I do notice that in other, you know, like people that I've talked to, the higher histamine foods do tend to be really aggravating to an ADHD brain. So Since histidine is like that precursor amino acid into histamine, I think that's great that it's not in your products actually.
We're
but
gonna
yeah.
keep leaving it out. Maybe I'll put in glucose where I would put in histidine.
And we'll just have to see what the glucose does instead. But
yeah,
I'm 100% trying that your little deck. I'm like going to, my natural grocers immediately.
Yay!
After to find it.
Well, I think it might be important to point out. I think in our last, I like to say that the low carb movement of like the 2000s was an overcorrection from the low fat movement of the 90s, but also like it's our version of the low fat movement. And it's not any different. It's extreme, it's overly extreme, and it's detrimental. But balance doesn't sell as well as extremes. It just doesn't initiate the reaction in us. But I do think it's worth pointing out, and I'm going to butcher this study as well. I should have come prepared with all my printouts, but at one point, there was a study where the researchers were trying to, I can't remember, look at how like glucose promotes inflammation and mitochondrial damage or something like that. And they actually had to basically walk back their initial premise because what they were discovering was that glucose was actually beneficial in the context of like cellular energy production and reducing inflammation. And what they were finding was that the circulating free fatty acids were actually causing the problems that they were looking to basically blame on glucose. So many of us, especially those of us who went low carb or keto or whatever, ended up eating so much fat and getting so accustomed to eating so much fat, which isn't bad. Fat is important, but we've been eating fat out of balance with the other macronutrients, in my opinion. And the circulating free fatty acids from dietary fat will block the insulin receptor on the cell. And so then we are unable to use carbohydrate. And then we start to see insulin resistance. And then, because I get a lot of pushback about like, well, won't eating carbs cause insulin resistance? And I'm like, it's actually much more nuanced than that. So I think that's also probably worth pointing out.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like everything we like to take to extremes, including opinions. Like, I feel like I land in the gray zone so much, and people are like, well, just, go to one side or the other. I'm like, I don't want to. Like, I'm in the gray zone. I'm sorry. Does not compute. It's way too easy for me to see both sides of the equation. So if we are trying to do our best, but we are in an overstressed world, and especially as women, unfortunately, I think it is still just true, even with great partners and great support systems and all that, we do bear a lot of the responsibilities. For women with ADHD in particular, it's almost easier just to trip the system. So it's not that all women don't have all the tabs open and all the stress and all of that. Like, yes, we all have that. It's just almost like the tripwire is so much closer to the door in an ADHD woman. And it feels like, you just barely walk in and then like all of a sudden it's, women are in overwhelm. So I love that you have hacks and tricks and like I want things to be as simple as possible because we have too many things loading our brains already. So if you're just like, I'm going through my life as a woman in her 40s-ish bracket and I'm trying to do things that are going to help my body know that it's safe and optimize my, metabolism and have good energy, like, what are like 3 hacks that you personally like do on a regular basis just to like live your very busy life?
Yeah. Okay. Well, you got me on the glucose
100%. I love that
strategy, easy button. You got that.
Yeah.
I also give myself a lot of grace. I think that's key for everybody. We can hack the carbs, hack the glucose, make sure we're sending safety signals to our body. But I also hack those safety signals while giving myself grace by choosing the correct workouts. So I will resistance train and I will do very short duration, like mini metabolic conditioning at the end, usually not more than 3 to 5 minutes. And I will do that max 3 days a week. And by the way, I've like never felt better and I feel like I've never looked stronger. So it works. But only working out 2 or 3 days a week, which I know still feels like a mountain to climb for some people. But you've got people out there that are like, you have to hit the gym every single day.
Yeah.
You don't. You do not have to hit the gym every single day. If you can get a good routine of resistance training in 2 or 3 days a week, and I have, right now we're like between apps, but in the new version of my workout app, which will be Ideal Age Fitness, because we're at our ideal age. We can make any age our ideal age.
Love it.
But I have like a home-friendly program that is focused on resistance training, which you can do with bands, kettlebells, adjustable dumbbells. You don't have to have a whole set of dumbbells. There's a ton of different supplies that you can use that are very home-friendly to resistance train. You don't have to go to CrossFit. You don't have to go to a gym with all of the equipment. You can do it in a bunch of different ways. So doing that and not pressuring myself to show up in like the fitness way more than 2-3 days a week is probably one of my, I feel like, low investment, high return decisions that I make as well. Gosh, there's so many of them. It's so hard to pick a top 2, a top 3.
All right, give us as many as you want.
I'll give you a bunch.
Yeah.
Listen, I used to be so afraid of snacking because I had heard, and you can, if you disagree with me on any of this, come out with it. I'm totally cool with that. But the way I looked at snacking was like, oh, your blood sugar crashing, so now you got to eat. You're always hangry. You always got to snack. That being hangry and wanting to like eat everybody's faces that talks to you is a totally different thing. It's dysfunctional and you feel that. It's a totally different thing from being like, all right, it's 2-3 o'clock. Like, let's power up my brain a little bit more. Let's give it a little more of another hit, another supply to avoid dipping into that breakdown state, which is totally natural for our bodies. It absolutely is. But again, modern solutions to modern problems. I do think a more consistent supply of food via 3 or 4 good, strong meals in a day and available snacks is an important way to kind of continually signal safety in the face of stress. So that's just a modern life hack. So I eat a lot of apples. Can you imagine suggesting someone eat an apple in 2008? Oh my God. Like we would have, and even now, I mean, people are so afraid of apples, but there was a little, I don't want to call it a study. It was kind of like a pilot study out of like the University of Sydney or something like that, somewhere in Australia, where they were gauging the satiety factor of different foods. And apples were like off the charts. It was like apples, potatoes, and then your different sources of protein. Apples are super filling. They promote good bacteria in the gut, and we know gut health is really important.
Yep.
So I'm very bullish on apples now. Apples and meat sticks.
Yes,
sometimes apples and dried fruit.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do that snacking. I'll make sure to get a little protein in. But I really take it, like I'm really chill about a lot of this stuff. I have rules of thumb, but you have to be able to be flexible. And this is what I tell. I have right now a cohort going through right now my metabolism program. And they're like, some of them are like, what should I do? Like, what about this? What about this? And I'm like, whatever you think. And like, I know you don't feel like, tell me. Maybe you felt like you were paying for like somebody to walk you through. But I think for some people, the challenge is actually doing less and expecting less. And maybe finding that minimum viable product that they can turn in at the end of the day and feel good about it. And that's, I think, true sustainability. Yeah.
Well, and I think, so I'm for mid-afternoon snack. I'm pro mid-afternoon snack 100%. And I also I always get a dip around like 2-3. And I will try and do like a snack and a walk, or sometimes extra shocking, snack and a nap. That's my very favorite
that's
combo.
So European of you.
And I don't need a lot. Like I just I set my timer for 30 minutes and I it doesn't feel very good when you wake up from that, but then like pretty quickly you're feeling better. But I think we usually, the way that our modern schedules are stacked is we have breakfast and lunch with a relatively shorter time period and then a relatively longer time period from lunch to dinner. So it does feel longer and harder, and there is a natural circadian dip right in the middle of that. So, why would it not make sense to have a snack at that time? So,
if you just went keto, you'd be full all day. You wouldn't have. You could eat one meal, and you'd never have to eat again.
All I have to do is pound some. Oh my God, fat bombs! I just need to pound some fat bombs, and then I'll be solid.
Now it's carnivore. I should say carnivore now and not keto. But my God, it's just the next iteration of kind of the same thing. And there's a big difference between being full and being fueled. And I have.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay. That's
TM.
yep. That needs to go right on an Instagram post.
I need to
It's a
just
quote.
say that in as many ways as possible
Yes,
until one of
that's
them
a really good
go
quote.
viral.
I like
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're walking around with a big rock in your stomach all day, that's not necessarily being fueled. That just means you ate a whole lot and your body is having to hack away at it slowly. But when we're fueled, we are naturally using that fuel and replacing it. And we don't need to feel like, oh, this means I have blood sugar, I'm giving myself blood sugar issues or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. You can have your fuel, maybe not feel stuffed, which is like, I think that's a other issue, right? Like you can't even use that when you're not digesting it. But okay, I've eaten a little something. It's enough fuel. That's going to carry me through. Especially as you're busy, like that's an apple and a meat stick you could stick in your purse and you can totally have that on the sideline of a kid's game. You're not like, struggling for energy.
It's easy.
Any other last hacks that you want to share with us? It sounds like you had a lot of good ones.
Oh, man. Well, the thing I have not figured out yet is for sure sleep. I mean, that is like the tool that we ideally would all be leveraging, but it's not going to happen at this stage of life. I have 2 young kids. I'm in an old ranch house where their bedrooms are right across from mine. All the new houses have like the primary suite at the other side of the house, and then the kids are over
Not mine.
here.
No, I still have they're right there. Yeah.
They're right there. And that's okay. But I even look at sleep deprivation. Like today I was up at 4:00 in the morning, literally just to like put together the Google Calendar for next week because there's so much going on. And I leverage carbohydrates to address the additional stress from sleep deprivation. I mean, it's just my tool. It's my tool right now. And I love that. But I haven't figured out the sleep thing. But that's, oh gosh, I feel like there's one other thing. But, I'm 42, so I forgot what it was.
I feel yeah. Maybe go with a nap if you can. I know that's a lot. And I used to roll my eyes so hard when people like when the, baby stage and they'd be like nap when the baby naps. I'm like, are you crazy? That's my only only time to get anything done. But now, like, first of all, sleep is non-negotiable for me. 100% it's easier because my kids are teenagers. So like, absolutely, there is a stage where it's just like, it's not possible. And I had like one of my kids didn't sleep through the night till she was 4. So like, there's that. So it's not always easy, but I'm a big fan of napping. And there is actually like plenty of it. And I will say with my research, weird nerdo brain, the first time I ever researched napping was when I was in high school. And I think it's because I was chronically sleep deprived in high school. And I did like a whole research paper on napping. And I have never stopped researching sleep and naps and all of that because I'm like, that is my drum to beat. Like,
you need to talk about do you talk about naps a lot?
I never have. I literally never talk about napping.
All of the people that, everybody follows now, Rhonda Patrick, Peter Attia, they talk about like the little they call them exercise snacks now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, people have been talking about that forever, but now, it just happened to hit with those folks. But like, you need to talk about sleep snacks.
Sleep snacks. I love it. I'm going to have to. Like, I literally never talk about it, but to me, that's like my secret sauce. Like,
I love that.
Go hit that. My husband can't. Well, he didn't used to. But he's like, I can't pressure sleep. I'm like, pressure sleeping. It's like, what a gift to give myself in the middle of the day to just like go shut my eyes for 30 minutes. But awesome. So this has been such a great conversation, Liz. I'm just so many great little nuggets of wisdom here, and I'm absolutely going to be trying a lot of these things and also sharing them with my kids. Like I said, I love that they are interested now. They are both interested. They both will go to the gym. They are both interested in these topics and like soaking up the information. So I'm glad we can give them good information and not send them out to the world with misinformation.
Yeah.
So I have a fun little final thing. I call my fast 4. They're just like 4 little, fun, non-related to anything in the interview questions.
Fun.
So my first question is, I'm a huge music fan personally. If you can remember, what was your first concert?
Oh, this is my favorite question in the world. It was Rough Riders.
I don't even know Rough Riders.
Rap ensemble. So it was DMX. I was sophomore in high school, St. Louis. DMX, Nelly.
Oh my God.
That's... Nelly and the St. Lunatics at that point. Still Nelly and the St. Lunatics. Cash Money Millionaires, which was Lil Wayne. And then like Eve and the Rough Riders, and it was very ill-advised. I mean, so yeah, that was my first. And my first CD, in contrast, was Hootie and the Blowfish.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. Yeah. I love that also some of like the 90s music is coming back around. Like I will hear this and like my kids recognize some of the things. Like how in the, it's social media, but yeah.
Well, and all the like Nirvana shirts at Target.
Yes. And Metallica and I'm like, you don't even know. You don't name me one song. Idea. You can't. No. Yeah. That's fun. I love that. That's so fun. Also, I'm imagining your mom like dropping you off. I don't even know your mom, but I'm like imagining she's like dropping you off and like, what is this? And like, what is happening here?
I'm pretty sure. Here's another fun fact about me. I went to boarding school for 3 years.
Oh.
I was in boarding school at the time. So now I can't remember, but I remember it was me, Dave Retzlaff, and Danny Quintanilla. And I'm pretty sure we went in Dave's minivan that had been passed down to him from his parents because he was a day student. I have no idea how we finagled
got there.
Yeah, no idea.
No. That's amazing. I super love that. Yeah, my kids. They just had together their first concert. They went to go see Billie Eilish. But it was awesome. But I was like, I was definitely like the nervous Nelly mother. Like I didn't go with them. Yeah. I dropped them off, and I was like, go have fun. And
I imagine they did.
I'm sure they did. But
we did Taylor Swift. I did do Taylor Swift with my oldest daughter.
I was late to the game. I didn't realize what a tidal wave it was, and like the concert ticket purchase price, blah blah blah, and then by the time we realized they were like $5,000 for nosebleed seats, and I was like, I'm sorry, girls, we're gonna go see it at the movies. Like there's nothing else.
Good choice. Don't dip into the college fund for that.
For sure. So one of my questions is if you have a morning routine. It sounds like you kind of don't from what I gathered, but maybe your morning routine is just like giving yourself some fuel, or do you have anything you consider a routine?
That's the one thing, like whatever it is I'm doing, because every morning is different, I will manage usually to mix up my aminos with my glucose or just a quick protein shake or something like that. Something fast that I can shake.
Yeah. Awesome. I love that. What's on your nightstand?
All of my kids' crap. She's in the bed with me more often than not. I do use it's a product two products that I like. I'm very lazy with skincare because I don't know. It's just another thing to think about. So I have on my nightstand a Blue Lean, which is a methylene blue product, like a fake cream.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. I'm a little skeptical of the methylene blue in skincare because it's blue, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Methylene blue is blue. And in order to not have it be blue, you have to oxidize it. I think the word is oxidized with vitamin C. And so that's when I was researching this, I was like, but isn't the methylene blue like oxidized? Because there's vitamin C in here too. So I don't know that it's the methylene blue that's doing whatever it is that it's doing, but the cream itself is very rich and nice. So I'll put that on. And then I have Eviba. It's I don't know, it's Dr. Eviba, but it's a guy named something Eviba, Eviba. He's big on TikTok, I think. But he has a slugging. Have you heard of slugging?
Mm-mm.
I know. It's like, basically it's like what our grandmothers did, like Pond's cold cream or Vaseline on their faces, basically just to kind of seal in whatever product you've put on.
Oh, nice.
He has like a slugging product that was the only product that has ever convinced me to try slugging.
I mean, just the word itself sounds a little...
I know. It just sounds gross. So I'll try that. And that's on my nightstand as well.
When you said slugging, I was thinking the Korean beauty stuff, like the snail mucinex.
Yeah.
You know that? Yeah. Like I have some, but like that's what I was thinking you were going to say. I have to look up this whole other trend of slugging.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. Any unusual talents or things that you're just like proud of that you personally do that no one really knows about you?
I can fold my tongue into 3.
Oh, me too. Mm-hmm.
That's what my daughter is most proud of about her mom.
Yeah, my kids can both do it too. My husband cannot. So clearly the genetics just went right down this line. It's the matrilineal tongue folding.
It is totally genetic. And speaking of genetic, I'm an excellent speller, and I always have been. And we did this temperament profile on my kids with the psychologist, who's amazing. It was so cool. And one of the things he said is that spelling is actually genetic.
Oh,
like you're either
I never knew that.
naturally great at it, or it's going to be a struggle forever, which used to matter more before autocorrect.
Yeah, that's so funny. I'm a writer and I have a master's in English. Like that is my whole like background before I came to this world. Yep. I'm a terrible speller. Like I just can't spell for the life of me. Like I've had to really focus to not get it wrong, but also now that we have spell check, it doesn't even matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Everything that I studied for. I was also an English major. That was my undergrad. And, none of it matters anymore with AI.
There's so many things, that don't matter. I'm like, ooh, yeah. Things have changed, but amazing. So, Liz, people who are interested in learning more about your approach to metabolism, especially women in midlife who want to be supporting metabolic function, and I'm just going to say broadly, I'm putting this under the umbrella. You can correct me if you think it's different, but like, how are we using our energy? How are we optimizing our energy so that we feel better and can get through our lives better? But tell us a little bit more about your program. Where can people find you?
That's a perfect way to describe it, by the way. And I need to work on my elevator pitch. So you can find me at Real Food Liz on Instagram. But I will say the place that I'm moving everything over to is idealage.com. So that's where the products are. That's where all of the articles and thoughts and wisdom and research is going to come through. So you can find Ideal Age through Real Food Liz. You can find it by going directly there. But that's where everything is. And we've got the great amino acid product, Daily Aminos Plus. Potentially by the time this comes out, depending on when that is, we'll be really close to releasing a creatine formula that was put together specifically for women in our age bracket. We hit a couple different, not just creatine, it's creatine and a couple other things that hit the hormonal system, the energy system, and even mood. So creatine does everything, but where we can really leverage it is not just for fitness and our muscles, but it's also for brain health, for overall energy production. So we got to start educating on that pretty soon. Yeah. And then we will have, hopefully by the spring, a hair, skin, and nails supplement, which I'm very excited about.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So just head over to idealage.com. You can get on the list for all of that stuff. And we have a metabolism program as well. The cohort right now we're in a live cohort right now. So the cart is closed for at least a little while longer, but we will open it up again. It's called Own Your Metabolism.
Love it. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Liz. It's been fantastic having you.
Thank you.
And I'm excited to try all your hacks. So
thanks, Christine. I could talk to you all day.
Yeah, likewise. All right. See you later.
Bye.
Ready to finally understand your ADHD brain and feel like yourself again? Listen to Christine MacCarroll's ADHD Naturally podcast for holistic women and discover how to thrive naturally.